Jannis, welcome to Self-Dom.
So happy to be here.
So I actually put a question up the other day about what guests you want on the pod.
Yeah.
And you were my most requested guest.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I was like, so many people are interested in you and what you do. So
Cool.
I'm very happy that you're on. And in case you guys don't know who Jannis is, he has been my PT for 4 years? 3 or 4?
A while.
It's weird because it doesn't feel like, I feel like we met yesterday.
Yeah.
And Jannis is very popular with a lot of models in Australia. He's worked very closely with IMG and CHIC to get the girls into their best shape. I think this is why you have such an appeal, because so many women are worried about getting bulky. And they're scared that if they lift weights, they're going to get big shoulders. And it's definitely something we're going to touch on. But your account shows strong women who are super lean, and yeah, I'm excited to jump into the pod with you. I also wanted to say that Jannis has taught me a lot, not just about physical fitness, but about the mind-body connection. He is a genius, and I'm so excited for you guys to learn more. So let's just jump straight into it. So how did you get into personal training, and more specifically, training models?
It's a good question. It's not like I ever thought about becoming a personal trainer. In fact, when I was 18 and all my mates were in the gym lifting weights, I wasn't. I didn't really feel the need to. I was pretty happy with the way I looked, and I was more of a runner. I was always into sport, so I was national champion in high jump as a teenager. I was fully into AFL and things like that. And then I was at university studying psychology and neuroscience at Sydney Uni and playing some AFL there. And I jumped across from the Sydney Uni team to an amateur club and was getting some money, and it was just helping with uni studies and stuff. And after that, I was still at university at the time, I joined the fire brigade.
So how old were you actually when you joined the fire brigade?
25. Yeah. And so the fire brigade are great, but with the AFL, I was always rocking up injured and bruised and hobbling, and so I had to give up the AFL in order to keep, my job as a firefighter. But I needed to do something physically active, and it just had to be casual because I had my profession now as a firefighter, and yeah, I just went and did my Cert 3 and 4. For personal training, and started coaching my girlfriend at the time and a couple of her friends, and we were just in the park at Rush Cutters.
Yeah, and still there.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually got onto this photo shoot for Aussie Bum, which is really random because
I've seen the photo.
I'm not a model or anything like that, but they sent us to Broome, and I think I made like $5,000 for that shoot, and I put that money straight into equipment, and then I just bought all this stuff, and we started out in the park, and from there it just sort of, what I realized is that everyone has got something going on with them, and so I used the research skills I learned from university and started applying them to everyone that I was training. And so I was just really invested into learning about humans and about the mind and the body. And from there, it just grew because I started doing other courses online. I started to meet biomechanics specialists and work with them. And there were people I actually asked if I could just sit and learn with them, and I'd pay them to go and do and learn what they knew about the body because I wanted to know that. So I was fully invested, and I think I was just really passionate about how we work. And from there, I went into the corporate industry, and I started doing personal training, group training, and also workshops for big companies like Apple, Microsoft, the Sydney Opera House, News Corp, Hamilton Island, all these different corporate groups. And that's where I started to sort of learn more about our connective tissue and posture and breathing and things. And then from there, Sweaty Soul opened up, and I went into Sweaty Soul, into the team there. And that's when the whole modeling sort of thing started to pick up, because I had now a good base out of a gym. That was kind of something I was lacking when I was in the park. And the weird thing that this girl, Lotta, from CHIC, she was just walking past one day and the doors were open, and she came by and I invited her in for a session. And she loved it, and she's Lotta's like fully into her fitness, and she loved it. So she came in a few times, and then from there it was like word of mouth started to grow through CHIC, and I was also pretty active on on social media trying to like invite some of the models around, because I went, no, this is a niche market I could get into. So I definitely sent some DMs there, and I definitely did a lot of free work for at least 1 or 2 years. It was, you know, you have to be selfless in that sense to build that sort of, I guess, network. And you don't see any reward for it, and you put in the hard work. But then what comes from there with patience is that you see, or you actually don't see it, but you start to see everyone coming towards you and approaching you, because now people that you've trained are talking about what you know and your skill set and your professionalism and your standards. And so I think that's the chat behind the scenes that I don't get to hear between the models, which I hope, which is why they sort of start to come towards me, you know. And obviously there's the visual side of it. People see me training on social media, and so I think not only is it models, and in fact I get the most common question I ask is, do you only train models? And no, I don't. That's just what I put on social media, because that's social media. I train people of all sorts, and I do a lot of rehab work now with people from post-surgery. I do a lot of work in sort of the mental health space as well, which, you know, like the gym for me isn't just a lifting environment. I call it like an enriched learning environment, and it's something where I want you to leave feeling like you've kind of gone through therapy as opposed to fitness. So you come in, you might not be so happy, but when you leave, you're ready to go and sort of win the day.
Yeah, and I think that just shows as well how much of a passion it was for you, because when you're willing to give out your time for free for something, it shows that you really love it and you know kind of what steps you need to do to get where you want to, and it has, and it's amazing to see.
I think it's just that vision that if you see something and you're sort of working towards it, even though you don't know the exact formula or direction, you just have that sort of scope. And I'm reading this book called Mastery at the moment, and it talks all about that, where you finish school and you're a bit lost, but as long as you're going in the sort of general direction, you don't have to be on the direct path, because that general direction will eventually come around to that direct path. And you look back and you go, oh, here I am now, and all those things that I did in the past got me to where I am, and it all makes sense once you're in the future 100%. And you get to look back. 100%. And my mum's a model, so it's kind of weird how that actually plays a big role, because I know how the industry works. I was a little kid just following my mum around through all the shows and everything, and so I knew the business, I knew the strains and the stresses and the hardships and the failures of the industry, and I think that also sets me in a good sort of place to be able to train models as well.
And I'm sure a big part as well is the first person you trained was your girlfriend at the time, so you've had this kind of female focus as well with what a lot of women want.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, then you've seen it, like, I do train men, and they come in and they're like, bro, what's this? And it's like, oh my God, that's so hard. And it's different, you know. It's
the most humbling experience.
It really is. I love it, because they don't, it looks easy, but as you know, it's not easy. It's just the way that I train people based on my knowledge.
So leading on from that, I know a lot of people who are in the self-dom community are kind of just starting their fitness journey, and if one of the girls was to come into the gym, what would be your first piece of advice for them?
That's a great question. And first of all, well done for getting into the gym. I spend probably the first 30 minutes talking to them about all sorts of things, from particularly energy expenditure, stress flexibility, and the importance of strength training. So I'd go through and talk about those things, and sort of like, I think when people come to see me, there's some sort of intimidation that they have. They're like, I'm really nervous to be here. And I'm like, no, don't be, because I don't have any preconceived ideas about what you can do in the gym, and I don't care. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just strip you back, and we're going to have a look at how you move and how you do things, what your history is, where you're at, and from there we'll build you a plan. And it's going to be a slow, patient delivery, so that nothing about it is intimidating. Because I know that if I've come back from a few months off, or an injury or an illness, then I'm not who I was back then. And so I'm going to hate it just as much as anybody else when they walk in. So I just go into the gym, I do something, and when I'm bored, I leave. And that's how I start my journey again. And because I don't have a PT, I just train myself. Sometimes I wish I had a PT.
I'm your PT.
Sometimes. And so you just go and do what feels good, and then you leave. Because all you have to do in the beginning is just build a habit and just show up. And I often say like that movement actually gives you energy, and then the energy gives you more movement. So it's a bit of momentum that you got to pick up. And so just packing your bag, getting to the gym, and maybe just walking on a treadmill gets you sort of like, it breaks down the barriers, gets you moving. And that walking starts to build some energy, and your body starts to realize that now you're warmed up and you're moving. You might jump off that treadmill and decide, you know what, I might actually lift some weights today. I might do some abs, I might do some glutes, and it just builds and compounds from there. But it's the same with whether it's a gym or running. Just take it slow, take your time. You know, if you've got a PT, great, because then you're going to learn how to do things safely. And that's probably my most, like the most important factor for me is like, I don't want anyone having injuries, because I know how they're not just, they don't suck physically, they actually suck more mentally.
Absolutely.
And I've had my fair share through AFL. So safety is a big thing for me. So I'm very particular and pedantic about movement quality, how people are doing things, whether they should be doing this or regressions. And on my Delta X Coach app, like that 8-week course is so basic that it takes you from not having lifted anything, and it's so safe in the way that you build in those every fortnight. So
it's pretty interesting as well, because as someone who is in like the fitness community and stuff now, people are nervous to, you know, go to a run club, go to the gym, but that's where the most welcoming people are. Like you could tap anyone on the gym and be like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? And they will help you. But it's in our mind that it's like such a scary and stressful place.
Especially because community is probably a word that's used in most gyms and most run clubs and most fitness activities. It's about building a community, because we evolved as people, citizens of a community, and like we need to be affiliated with those groups. And it produces, like I always say to people, like when you train solo, yes, you produce some oxytocin and you feel good, but if you train as a group, it's like compounds. It's 10 times more oxytocin, and you feel so much love, and it's amazing, isn't it? So.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice, is like focus on your form, and like maybe doing your course would be amazing as well, and just letting down that barrier, because it's in your head that you're going to be judged or that anything.
If I could share one story, because I think it's quite important, that age is no barrier either. And if I spoke about my mum, she moved up to the Sunshine Coast, didn't know anyone, and she has the biggest group of friends now from the gym, and she'll do 2 sessions in a row, and then she spends 3 to 4 hours just having lunch and coffee afterwards, like she's retired.
I was going to say, she's living the dream.
And that is her day every day, and she's so happy. And it's like all her friends came from the gym, and she's like 65. So she probably hates me saying that. I don't even know her age, but so like that for her, like the gym can be such a place where you can just really meet some great people, and it can be life-changing. Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, going from that, your mum, you said she's training twice a day. I'm sure she doesn't look bulky. So I wanted to touch on this stigma around weights and getting bulky. I really want you to talk about this and tell us why we shouldn't be thinking this.
Yeah, look, it's one of those questions that comes up a lot, especially with the models coming through. And there are people out there that have said to me, I started lifting weights and then I just got bulky. And there's a couple of things that, you know, I try to talk them through. The first one is, I don't know who they were training with. So maybe they were just lifting super heavy weights 3-4 times a week, increase their calorie intake, and maybe lifting for, you know, reps of 5 to 10. They're the kind of stats that you need in order to build muscle. But to get to those stats, you also need a pretty good training base. The other thing is that what I say to people is, and if you weren't doing that, but you thought you were getting bulky, it can sometimes just be your perception. When we start to lift weights, we get in touch with our body. We start to feel the muscles of our body. And that can make you feel really good. And as a guy, like you like that, you get that bit of a pump going on. And then just the fact that you now feel your muscles, it can also change your perception on how you look. You might not actually look any different to anyone else, but you feel different because of that. So there are 2 factors that are involved. Now, when I spoke about the pump just then, when you do lift weights, you're bringing a lot of blood to the muscle tissue. They fill up in volume. And unfortunately, it lasts about 30 minutes to an hour. So like guys will do the pre-beach pump and
yeah. We all see it at Bondi. We see you guys.
Then you go to the beach, right? And then they're pretty much deflated, and you go, well, that happens. But look, with women especially, whilst you have some testosterone, it's very, very small. And the major determinant for growth of your muscle tissue is testosterone and growth hormone. And men have an abundance of that, especially when they're younger. So you're sort of not designed to grow in that sense. You have to be training a lot, and heavy weights.
Yeah.
So which is, we lift heavy, but we have a lot of variety in our sessions, and I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, if you do want to grow as a woman, you have to lift heavy, you have to lift often, and you have to eat a lot, because that's the only way you're going to grow. And probably rest a lot as well, because if you are lifting that heavy, you need that time to rest. And so the women that you see on social media that are big, strong girls train almost every day, they eat a lot, they recover well. And that's not how we train in a sense. No. So we train I always say to the people that come to train with me, how strong do you want to be? Okay, that's how strong we're going to make you. And a lot of people just want to be strong enough for life. And I'm like, great, because that's all I want to do. So, and that means that we don't have to go and load up the spine with 100 kilo back squats, because your spine doesn't need that load on it. There's much better ways to be able to train the legs without having to lift 100 kilos on your back. And if you don't want to be that strong, you don't have to be. You just want to be strong enough to get through life and keep your bones healthy and your muscles working and your brain healthy. So if that's your goal, then what I like to do is we do a lot of single arm, single leg work, where we can stress our body or our legs and our limbs without as much weight, simply because we're on one limb. So we do a lot of that stuff. We do a lot of body weight. You know that. We do a lot of body weight. And when you know how to put the body in a position that's challenging, even if it is just body weight, it's stressful enough, and you can still build strength. And strength is not just growing muscles. Strength is also, people forget that the nervous system has a lot to do with your strength. And I often refer to the nervous system as your Wi-Fi, so at home, or your internet. When you first start learning a movement or doing something like that, you might find that you're shaking a lot. And that's generally a new movement. Your communication between your brain and your body to produce that movement is quite weak. And the signal's dropping in and out, and you start shaking. And that's just like a dial-up internet of the old days, right? The information comes through very slow and kind of like dut, 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 dut. Whereas once you've built the strength through the nervous system to do that movement, you can hold it for longer, you're not shaking as much. And now your nervous system, or your Wi-Fi system, is like 5G, and the information comes through, and it's strong, and it's not cutting in and out. So I often tell people, like, you have the muscular system, but you also have the neuromuscular system. So, and that's really important. So we do a lot of training that trains your neuromuscular system, your stability, your overall strength, all the stuff you need to be athletic, mobile, strong, and living a life that you want to be living without having to gain that extra mass. A lot of trainers talk about variety and say, you don't want to do variety, but they're always the trainers that are talking mostly about growing and sort of having that sort of personal trainer mentality that we often have, a lot of the guys have as well, about just growing muscle, getting stronger, blah, blah. But I actually think that variety is fantastic for the women that I train, because it keeps their mind busy and always changing. They like a bit of change up, and you're not using the same muscle group all the time and doing this relentless building of that muscle. Yeah. So the fact that we change it up a lot as well means that you're not going to be stressing the muscle group too often and too much to build it, because we're always changing things up.
Yeah. Well, I think that touches nicely on the next question, which is looking at like a workout split. And obviously everyone's different, but on a broader scale, what would a good workout split look to you for someone who wants to gain lean muscle and improve their longevity?
Yeah, absolutely. So health and longevity is a big thing that I research, and a workout split that I often recommend is to do 2 to 3 strength sessions a week. And they should be full body sessions. Yeah. I know you like your glutes and abs.
But I was going to say, like, I think that's also a big reason that the bulkiness isn't seen, because it's always full body, like you're always incorporating. It's not just leg day.
Yeah, we're not doing 6 legs exercises on the one day where we're doing full body sessions.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that as well is because it also gets your cardiovascular system up in the way that I approach it. And so 2 to 3, and 2 would be for beginners, probably 3 for more advanced people that have been training for a while. And then I love my slow running. And I think that everyone can slow run. And people are like, oh, but I'm not a runner. And I often
What's a slow run?
So a slow run, and there's another program on my app with Maria, and it's basically, when I say a slow run, it's ridiculously slow. It's almost like, are you taking the piss slow? It's about a 6.5 minute kilometer. Now we walk at around 11 to 12 minutes per kilometer, but the difference between a fast walk and a slow jog is just in the cadence, in the way that you actually do it. And a walk or a fast walk probably won't get your heart rate to a level that we need to increase our fitness, at least our fitness base. Yeah. But a slow run will, and it sits you in this, what we call our zone 2. So it's about 120 to 140, 45 beats per minute. And it's something that you can do for a long time. And the reason being is because it's not intense enough. And that means you're going to sit in your fat burning zone the whole time. And this is really good for your mitochondria. And your mitochondria are those energy factories of your cells that are really the anti-aging formula of the human body. All right,
I'm slow running.
Yeah. Now, if we can keep our mitochondria healthy, and slow running does that, or we can boost them and build them and grow them, and that's more from your HIIT training, then you're basically producing more mitochondria. And if you can keep your mitochondria healthy and big, and there's many of them, you're going to slow down the aging process, because that's basically the main thing that is. And things that kill mitochondria: alcohol, cigarettes, late nights, partying, and all that kind of stuff. So 2 to 3 strength workouts. I would say about 3 slow runs a week.
Wow, how many K should we be aiming for?
So think about time. I don't care about, and this is the thing, when people start their running, they think about distance or speed, and they're the 2 things I don't want you to think about. I just want you to go, I need to last for 30 minutes, and I'm going to go that slow that I can do it. Because I don't care if in that 30 minutes you run 1 kilometer or you run 6. It's what feels easy for you. Remember that the run has to feel easy. We don't want to go into stress. Your stress is your strength days. This is recovery. This is about feeling good. This is about letting your brain uptake blood and oxygen, and you're going to have some clear thoughts, and it's really good for your mental health. I've just started running after 18 months of having an injury. I am loving life.
Oh my God,
I feel so good. Yes.
I'm like looking at the beach right now.
Yeah.
Like, I want to run that
promenade.
I've
had girls come in and they're not runners. They're like, Jannis, you'll never get me to run. And I'm like, you know what? We're not training in the gym today. I'm going to take you to the park where it's flat, and we've gone for a run for 30 minutes, and they're like, I can't believe I just did that. And the reason being is that when people start to run, they go too fast.
That's what I do. I go straight sprinting.
And it's like, you're not going to last very long, because you can't keep that effort up, and you start to hate running because it feels hard. Find somewhere flat, take it super slow, really small steps.
Okay.
Go with a friend. You should be able to chat the whole time.
Really?
Absolutely. That's how slow it is.
You know me, banging music on. I'll need high vibration.
So super slow, super easy, and you'll last 30 minutes, no problem. And if you're stuck to where you go, just jump on my app. And
so 30
it's a 12-week program. 30 minutes to start, and then I'd probably say for women, 30 to 60 most. I generally don't think that women in particular should be doing more than 30 minutes, just for hormonal reasons and energy balance. And unless you're training for something like that's an endurance race, then I don't see why you need to invest any more time into it. But 3 30 to 45 minute slow jogs a week, plus your 2 to 3 strength sessions, and yes, Pilates or yoga or whatever it is that you like to do, that's just fun and part of your community, then you can do those as well. The most stressful thing there is definitely the strength days, and you need your recovery from, and the slow running will help you recover, and the Pilates and the yoga or those other extracurricular activities that you like to do will also not be too stressful on the body.
You mentioned that the mitochondria, and you said that if you smoke or drink or party and XYZ, it will damage it.
Yes.
Do you think doing these runs, doing these exercises will actually help
reduce? This is a great question, Dom. And this is something I've been sort of creating in my own research. I've kind of termed it constructive stress and destructive stress. And what I mean by that is, when we do constructive stress, whether that's strength training or an ice bath or even a sauna, what happens there is that you're going into a stressful state, but our human biology rebounds from it. So let's say when we're in the gym and we go and lift weights, we actually leave the gym weaker than before we arrived. But we know that 2 days later, we're actually now stronger.
Yeah.
And that's an adaptative process. Same with the ice bath. When you take an ice bath and it's freaking you out and it's super cold, for the next 6 hours or so, you've got this reduced heart rate. When you go and do your runs and your heart rate's elevated, well, your resting heart rate is now going to be lower because you're not only fitter, but your body's in a state of calm. And it's doing that because it can't give energy. You can't give too much energy because otherwise you're using too much energy for other functions that your body needs. And so it has this rebound effect. So I call it constructive because it's actually promoting good health. And it's still stressful, but it's constructing you to grow, to get stronger, to be healthier, to recover better. Destructive stress is something like, alcohol, for instance. When you drink it, it's stressful upon the body. Alcohol is a poison. It's stressful on the body. And it's starting to make you feel, you get a dopamine effect, but the next day you feel depressed because that's what it is. And it's destructive because there's no rebound effect. It's just like when you have it, you're just going downhill.
Yeah.
So drugs, alcohol, late nights, lack of sleep, all these sorts of things, processed foods, high sugars, all that sort of stuff. So when you have it, it's stressful on the body, but then it also drags you down. The other stuff that I was talking about, like exercise, it's stressful on the body, but it builds you up. And so you have to basically look at how is it that you're, what's the dosage is really important, whether it's constructive or destructive. Exercise can be dangerous too if you do too much, and it can be destructive if it's too much. And it's the same with like alcohol and processed food. It's like, enjoy some and have a little, but make sure it's not the majority of your lifestyle. It's the sort of same with constructive stuff, is where you want to be. Most of your lifestyle is in that constructive area, and then enjoy yourself a little bit.
So you can't play hard. What's that?
Well, no,
you go hard. You just go hard with everything.
Yeah, no, like dosage is always important. I always tell people it's like, think of your body as it's like at war with the environment, and our body is super strong and resilient to occasional hits, okay? But if you were to always do something and you're sending the environmental army into your body, say it's like you drink every day, you're basically they're fighting you every day, and it's wearing you down slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly. In the future, if you were to look at your life in the future and not just think about it on the day to day, you may actually be aware of this and see this. You go, I don't want to drink anymore because I can tell that it's ruining my body.
Yeah.
So, whereas like when they did some studies on the people in Hiroshima with the atomic bomb that got dropped there, the people that weren't in the direct blast radius, they got hit with so much radiation, a lot of them still lived till over 80. And the reason being is because it was a one-off hit. So the body took it, had to suffer through it, and then rebounded and got stronger from it. But when we're always surrounded by electromagnetic radiation all the time, that's probably more dangerous because it's just constantly bombarding our body. And this is why I always say to people, we need to get out into nature pretty often. Like I always say, if you can get out into nature at least once during the day, beach walk, go for a park or something, and then once a month, a weekend away, and then once a year, a whole week out in nature, it's good for your mind, but it's also just taking away all the stresses of the environment in our modern day that is actually wearing us down. And you come out and you feel amazing, and I do it all the time. Going out into nature, and every time I come out from a week of hiking, I feel incredible. I'm a new person, and you just feel calm. You feel like you just feel like awesome. So nature's vital for taking away all the stresses and just and feeling great.
So in short, the slow runs won't make up for the bendering on the weekend.
They will. That's actually, let me just talk about dopamine then. If you do have a big weekend and your dopamine levels drop, then you're feeling like crap the next day and you're in this sort of pain avoidance. And some people go and have another beer just to boost that dopamine again. Well,
that feeling's giving me the ick.
You're digging a hole. You're digging a hole. Now, the best things that you can do are, again, do constructive dopamine things. And they are still the same as exercise,
Sauna,
you don't have to go
ice
hard,
bath.
but you can definitely start moving your body. Yeah, sauna, ice bath, those sorts of things are going to boost your dopamine up, and they're going to basically shorten the refractory period of dopamine equilibrium. So when you do go up and you do come down, you then have a time period, depend on what it was. But let's say the biggest one is like 30 days because it's a hard drug or something. So 30 days to get back to where you were before. That can be a painful 30 days. So exercise, ice baths, all those sorts of things will shorten that refractory period because it's naturally boosting your dopamine levels.
Okay, so it does. So if you do every once in a while decide to have a big night and go out.
Yes.
Advice here.
Yeah.
All right, I love that little segue. That was good. I think a lot of people want to know the answer to that, but they're too scared to ask their PT that.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on Pilates because I really feel like it's having a moment. It's something that I really enjoy. I find it low stress. It's good for my cortisol. Do you think this is enough of a training regime for women?
That's a great question because it's something I have spent hours in my bedroom looking at and researching to try to get to the fine line of, is Pilates enough? And if so, how much do you have to do? And what is it doing for the human body? And I've really researched that a lot because I have had girls come in and tell me that just by doing Pilates and walking alone, they've had great results in terms of their body composition.
But you have to have time to do that because you have to have time to go for the walk and Pilates. And I feel like a lot of models who do train are lucky where you don't work every day. But for a lot of people, they work a 9-to-5 job. So they don't actually have time to do an hour of Pilates and an hour walk. Yeah,
true. And honestly, I've been a bit skeptical when they've said this to me because I've done Pilates. You dragged me along to my first KX Pilates and we did the reformer. And I mean, it's a bit of a workout and I got, a sweat on and, but it's not a very high intense level. So you can't really quite call it cardio in terms of, it's not going to build your fitness too much. It would for a beginner. It'll help you a little bit there. And it's not going to build your strength too much, but it would if you're a beginner again.
Yes.
So I feel like there is, it's a great place to start and it's a great place to maintain once you get to your level. But you're lifting up to 5 kilos in most classes. Like there's 2, 3, 4, 5 kilos there. That's not a lot of weight. So, you're going to stimulate your muscles in a good class with a great teacher. You're going to work your postural muscles, your stabilizing muscles. But what you're not really hitting too much are your prime movers. So your quads and your hammies and your glutes to a level that requires maximal recruitment of the muscle. So I think when we look at a muscle, you have to remember that there's many fibers, muscle fibers in a muscle, and they're all innervated by what we call a motor neuron. So that's the connection to the nervous system. Now, the human body is always efficient. So if you're lifting 5 kilos, the human body is going to use as many muscle fibers as it needs to lift 5 kilos, which isn't a lot. If you're lifting 100 kilos, the human body is going to have to try and recruit every single muscle fiber through your nervous system to lift that 100 kilos. And that's what we call hard work. And one lift is going to make you feel like, oh my God, that was crazy if you can even lift it. So when we talk about how much energy you use, well, when you use all your muscle fibers to lift something heavy, you're using a lot of energy and it drains what we call the nervous system battery because of the amount of energy that's required to recruit all your muscle fibers. So the work you do is much harder when you lift weights than when you are doing Pilates, purely based on the fact that you're targeting a low number of muscle fibers because you don't need it. And the human body is always going to be efficient. So if it doesn't need any more than it has to do something, and if you're always just doing Pilates, the human body is going to get comfortable at some point in time. And then it's like, okay, well, this is all I'm ever sort of lifting. So this is where I'm comfortable. You may lose some muscle fibers if you were stronger going into Pilates and lose some mass there. But I train a lot of Pilates teachers, and they often come to train with me because they do a lot of Pilates, but they feel like they still need some more in terms of lifting some weights for their strength and doing some more cardio for their conditioning. So Pilates has its place. It has its place in teaching how to breathe well, has its place in You're stabilizing muscles, which is great for your motor control, your coordination, your balance.
I definitely find core as well, because often you don't need to add so much load.
Yeah, and there's the postural side of it, and your core's a big thing on that, and your hips. And again, it always comes down to who's your teacher as well.
Absolutely,
what do they know? And a lot of the Pilates teachers here in Sydney come to me to learn more about the biomechanics, about positioning and about breathing. And I love that. I welcome them in, because it's like, I know I've got a lot to offer them, and I love to see it then brought into their classes and just leveling up their approach to Pilates and the human body as a whole. So Pilates has its place, and it's just not something I would say it should be your only. Like the walking Pilates thing, I feel like it's a bit of a fad, because to me, I feel like it's easy. It's still comfortable. Remember, if we're going to adapt and make any changes, you need to be pushing those boundaries and jumping out of the comfortable space. And I think it's a great place to start, because like I said earlier, when you are starting, you don't want it to be too hard. It's a great place to start. Do it for a few months, and you'll probably find that once you're at this sort of level, if you stop seeing any adaptation or changes or feeling like in your body, then that's probably the time that you've got a good base to then start lifting some weights.
I think that's really good advice. I think for me, when I started my health and fitness journey a long time ago, it was Pilates, and it wasn't as scary going into that. I think also it's a lot of women in the classes, and as a woman, it's less daunting than going into a gym with all these men and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely think making it part of your routine is great. And if you're starting, it's definitely a great way to start. I think we should dive into mindset. You see girls from session to session, and I know personally that when my physical body gets stronger, my mental state gets a lot stronger. So what are some of your non-negotiables when it comes to having a healthy mind?
It kind of leads back into just how we finished there, in going into areas of discomfort. I call this stress flexibility, and it's something when the new clients come in, and we're doing that sit on the couch and the whiteboard chat for 30 minutes, and I talk about stress flexibility. And basically what I'm looking at there is I draw a semicircle, and inside that semicircle is your comfort zone, and there are all the things that you usually do, your daily habits, and it's quite comfortable. And then outside of that that semicircle is your growth zone. And I put certain things out there. It's like, okay, let's put an ice bath right on the end of the spectrum of chaos, and that's high stress, right? We know going into an ice bath is horrible. It can feel like you're being stabbed by 1,000 like little needles, and there's not many places on earth that are as uncomfortable as an ice bath. And so to get there, let's just start with a cold shower and start to approach the ice bath progressively. So I always say, if you want to start your day well, get a bit of a dopamine boost and start to feel energized, get some adrenaline running, start it with have a warm shower and finish with 2 minutes of cold. It's also great for your immune system and other things. So, and that's and people find that hard, and it's like, okay, well, maybe just try for 15 seconds. Just go 15 seconds, a bit of cold, breathe hard, and go there. The other side of the coin I call silence. And so you have chaos and silence ice baths, and then I talk about float tanks, which is a bit more based on recovery there, and going into an area of a zone where even though it's silence and a float tank might sound nice, the only thing that you have coming into your mind is your own mind, your thoughts, which for a lot of people can be scary and
it's probably harder than the ice bath.
Can be stressful, right? And so I say, well, let's move towards that. So maybe we don't have to do meditation straight away. You could just start with some breathing, or just going for a quiet walk in nature is a really good thing to do, or a slow jog, or then try the float tank, which is to me the ultimate in terms of sensory deprivation and just laying there with your thoughts. But we need to do this. We need to review our thoughts, and we need to bring them to our conscious mind and to process them. And so, that stress flexibility, it's about stepping gradually out of your comfort zone and into this sort of growth zone, I call it. Because if you never go into a growth zone, then you're probably going to find that over time your comfort zone is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and things are going to start to irritate you, and you're not going to have that strong mindset. So to build a strong mindset is the same way as building muscle. You're basically overloading and progressively overloading what it is you do, and just trying new things and trying things that do scare you a little bit, but doing it safely.
Yeah.
And this is where I say, like, to parents that have young children, let your kids explore. Let them go out into the parkland and explore, as you know, and do it safely.
We're doing that with our young child.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
crumble.
Yeah, a little crumble, yeah. And let them go and use their hands and feet and their mouths and let them explore. And as long as it's in a safe environment, because it's really important for them to sort of build that that mindset of exploration and not being held back by fear. Because I feel like sometimes we can protect children a little bit too much and then put that fear-based mentality into them. And it's important we don't have that as young children, because we're going to have that as adults. So yeah, I mean, a strong mindset, and going back to the gym as well, it's like you don't always feel like you want to train, right? And this is where I will always assess the client, whoever it is, when they come in to train with me, and I'll see what their state of mind is. And I can see if they might be angry or they might be sad or something. And it's like, okay, let's not go and do weights straight away. Let's just shake your body up a little bit. Yeah. And I might say, we're just going to get a ball and we're going to slam it on the ground like 20 times and just let that emotion out of your body.
You've done that with me.
I have.
Or you're like, we're doing boxing.
We're doing
punch
boxing.
The shit out of that bag. I'm like, oh yeah. And you always feel good after.
Yeah, because the people think that the brain and the body are two separate entities. But because of when you study fascia, which is our connective tissue, and you realize how highly innervated our fascial system is, it's actually more innervated than the eyeball. Now, the eyeball is part of the brain, and it's got trillions of receptors, but our fascia is even more sensitive than the eyeball. And so you can't really say that the brain and the body are two separate things. They're actually one. And I often think of it like this. Your brain is like your processing center, and your body is your storage area. Yeah. So your emotion, your mood, a lot of your mental state is stored within your body. And when you start to realize this and realize the power of how movement can release the storage facility and clear your mind through movement, it's just amazing. Then you find real power in movement. And that's why slamming some things and just powerful, stimulating movement can really just shock the body and release tension out of your body. And massage is the same. Massage has a really amazing way to remove the tension out of the body as well, and the emotion and some of the mood, because it's where we store. So we need to bring that storage up sometimes and bring it into our mind and think about it and review it and write it down and see it and then let it go. And that's really healthy. And whilst we're on this topic, like I often say, with women and body image, I feel like, 10, 20 years ago, women probably weren't, like, exercise wasn't as big of a thing.
No.
Guys have always just been, that's how, playing sports, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like men have always released emotion out of their body. What they're not good at is they're not great at talking about their emotions, and they store it in their mind. Yeah. Which is quite the opposite to women. Women will sit down and talk about things. Yeah. They release it from their mind, but I feel like they still store it in their body because of a lack of movement. Yeah. And now seeing women move a lot more, I feel like it's going to be really great for things like body image, where you may hold a lot of your negative emotion in your body, which is maybe why you may hold a negative body image about yourself. Guys don't have that as much, I think, because they always move. But we know that male suicide rates are much higher, and because it's stored in their head. And there hasn't been research, I don't think, on this. It is something I'd like to look into when I'm older, in doing a research into movement, body image, and suicide, and communication and things, and how we process and how we store those negative emotions. But movement is there's nothing better than moving for therapy, I think. Yeah.
Well, I was listening to a podcast and it was talking all about suicide rate, and it said the two ways to release to release stressful thoughts and stress from your body was speaking or movement. Yeah. So as you just said, it's
perfect,
like
I'll have to get that podcast off you then.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm big on the mindset, and that's one of the reasons me and the Self-Dom community did a water fast this week. And I personally loved it. I'd never done one before. You've encouraged it before. Tom's a big lover of it. For me personally, I thought not only was it a detox for my body, it was a detox for my mind. I found it quite clearing, and I found it quite, put me in this like meditative state for the entire day. And I just wanted to get your view on water fasting, because obviously fasting is one that it divides people. People don't like the word, but I just wanted to get your view as a personal trainer on fasting.
So my original research into fasting came through intermittent fasting. When I started to have a look at energy expenditure, now with the clients I train, I never talk about calorie counting or anything like that. I'm more about the when you eat and the what you eat as opposed to how much you eat. And so that's when I started to look into the timing of your food and sort of our evolution and looking at how our cortisol, our insulin and our gut motility is higher in the morning and lower in the evening, generally because when we're going to bed, we don't need high levels of cortisol, insulin, and gut motility because we're not meant to be having these massive meals before we go to bed.
I actually sleep terribly when I have
because you've got a gut full of food, right? And so to manage calories, what I say to people is like, don't count your calories, but have a look at the window of your feeding window. So, if you seem to just eat first thing you get up and right before you go to bed, you've probably got like a 13, 14 hour feeding window. And every time you put a calorie into your body, your hormonal systems start to go into storage mode. So the body evolved in scarcity. And so we're very good at storing fat. And we were designed that way because we had to make so much effort. We had to go and hunt as, tribes people thousands of years ago to get food. So getting food was hard work. And it was scarce.
No Uber Eats back then?
No Uber Eats. So we became very good at storing fat. What's changed is that now we're in a society where you can get food any time of the day without any effort whatsoever. And it's the complete opposite to how our DNA has evolved. Because evolution takes many, many hundreds of thousands of years.
We haven't evolved.
We haven't caught up.
Level,
no,
right?
in the last, whether even we look at the last 50 years, nothing about us has changed in our DNA, but our environment, our society has. And that's why exercise is something that we need to do because we used to have to move 20,000 steps a day to hunt or collect food out of necessity to survive. Now we don't need to do that. We need it. And that's why it looks like exercise is almost like a chore or a punishment, but it's not. We just have to understand our DNA and know that we're moving to get our food in. And now we've got this abundance of food any time of the day, and some of it can be super high calorie and super processed, and it's not good for you. And then if you're just eating all the time, so you can overeat very, very easily. So to manage that, we say, okay, well, let's just shut your window down a little bit, and let's maybe not have. I like to promote eating earlier into the day. So I'd say maybe, like for me, sometimes I'll eat from 8 a.m. till about 4 p.m. and then nothing in between.
See, that would work better for me as a window.
And I'm not a big person that goes out and has late dinners either. So I know societal sort of cultural pressures and stuff and going out with friends can change
We're grandparents,
that. Yeah, exactly. But otherwise, some people do 10 till 6 or some people do like 12 p.m. till 8 p.m. And the science shows there's not too much of a difference in those things. It's just for me, I go to bed earlier, so I don't want to have a lot of food in my belly.
And you're a strong guy and a big guy. It's not like you're calorie deficit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
I eat a lot.
People assign the word fasting to reducing calories to purely lose weight. And I think that's not what it is. And I don't intermittent fast myself. I naturally tend to stop eating a few hours, at least 2 hours before I go to sleep because I've noticed just intuitively that it impacts my sleep.
Yep.
But I also think it's interesting that if your goals are to lose weight, it's just reducing that window. It's
100%.
Quite a simple way.
Yeah, because there's only so much food you can eat in a smaller window. So naturally, you're going to having less calories because you're just going to be feeling full. And then once that window's up, you can't eat a minute of calories. You're not, you may feel hungry when you first start, but that's just habitual because our cells have clock genes and their genes are basically switched on through food. So when we usually have dinner at 8, but now we're only having dinner at 6, at 8 p.m. you're going to naturally feel hungry because your body is used to it. Those clock genes are turning on. The hormones are then saying, I'm going to release these hormones to make you feel hungry because I usually get food at 8. That only takes a week or two to change those habits in our timing of our food. And if you do feel hungry, just drink some water. In saying that, the 24-hour fast is it's not a super long fast, but it's longer than, it's a full day. A lot of research on fasting, and in most things in science, unfortunately, are done on men because men are simple creatures where we don't have the menstrual cycle. Yeah. So there are some new studies coming out in terms of men and women with the fasting. It's something I've been looking at because obviously it's something I like to research on. And so a 24-hour fast isn't that long, but it can seem long if you haven't done one. But it's still not something that I would promote women do too frequently. And it's just because women need energy balance for their menstrual cycle, for their fertility. And that's really important. Now, a 24-hour fast isn't going to change that. But if you were to do it, a couple of times a week, every week for, let's say 2 months, you could be disrupting your energy balance. And and notice I'm not even talking about weight loss or fat mass loss or anything like that. The fasting isn't to do with that at all. Generally, the human body works on equilibrium, and if you fast for 24, you're probably going to binge eat the next 24, and your energy balance overall is going to be quite fine. But
I think the word binge eat can be quite triggering for people. Not
absolutely.
Binge eat, it just means you might make up for the calories the next day.
Absolutely. But you still got to be mindful of that you're not doing that because you don't really need to. But energy balance is important for women, so for their fertility and their reproductive system. And I was just researching this actually last night on my Saturday night. And so it's really important that when it comes to women, they are aware of the fact that they're going without calories for a day or so. But the benefits of fasting, like you said, I mean, it promotes longevity. We know that through a number of different ways.
Someone with gut problems like myself, it resets your gut by 24 hours from not eating. So it's not something I'll do. It was just a once a year kind of thing.
Well, you can actually do it more often than that. But the lining of the gut repairs, I think it's every 7 days. And think about it as like when we eat every day and eat, every couple of hours, it's almost like if your gut was a muscle, you're taking it to the gym nonstop and just pounding it away on the gym floor. And we know it gets weaker and weaker. And so a lot of gut issues are just simply due to overstressing the gut lining, whether that's through the foods we eat, if they're too processed, or from just eating so frequently as well. And so a 24-hour fast just gives your gut lining a bit of peace and quiet and a bit of time to restore and heal if you are having some issues. When we look at fasting going beyond the 24 hours, there's some great benefits there with what we call autophagy and your immune system. And for some people that are suffering from, maybe a low immune system, or they've got some
I've heard amazing
some
stories.
illnesses that they need to clean up. Yeah, like the broken down proteins and DNA particles and stuff that are floating around your body just get eaten up and used as protein, and it can really there are definitely signs that shows that it prevents things like cancers and other diseases by doing these longer fasts, to 2 to 3 days, which is something I want to start to get into a little bit more.
How often would you do it yourself?
I like to stick to my sort of more my intermittent fasting regime, just because I struggle. I love food.
I know. He's always got Uber Eats coming to the gym.
And because I'm so active, even if I'm doing a full training day and I haven't trained myself, I can do 10 hours on the gym floor and I've done 25,000 steps.
Yeah, that's mental.
And the amount of because I'm always lifting the weights and stuff for all my clients as well. So
you're lifting them for us because we can't lift them off the floor.
The amount of energy I'm giving in those days of just PTing is high, and it took me a while to realize that. And I need to eat a lot to keep that up.
Absolutely. But I think if you were going away or something, it was something more you would focus on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing as well with fasting and any workout or diet you choose. You want it to fit into your life. It doesn't run you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can definitely, for me, it would be hard because it'd have to be a Sunday or something where I've got the day off. And for some people, they can feel a little bit more tired. Probably not in the 24 hours because you've generally got enough energy in your body to last. Yeah. It's more the hunger pains you're going to have to go through, which you can have with a glass of water to fill you up. But after 24 hours, you're going to start to feel pretty hungry at times. And that will come and go throughout, but you can feel a little bit more lethargic, and you're probably not going to train as hard and lift as heavy and all those sorts of things.
You might snap at your
but
friend.
it's a 2 to 3 days, and it's for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. And fasting's not something that we're talking about again for weight loss or anything like that. That's a completely different discussion.
It's more of an internal.
Yeah,
you don't really see the changes.
It's about your health and longevity, and cleaning your body up a little bit and giving it some rest on the inside from the food.
And that's why I kind of was really nice hearing you say that, because as someone who has suffered with eating issues and stuff in the past and now readdressing things that would have been triggering but seeing them in a new light, especially with, circumstances where people in my life are sick and I'm looking at other alternative medicines and ways to heal. So I think this will be really interesting for me and interesting for the viewers.
For sure. Yeah.
I wanted to ask the last question, which was, you were getting so much demand that sometimes I can't even get in the gym at the moment. So what's planned for the year? And if anyone listening wants to train with you, what should be their next step?
Yeah. Getting in is tough.
Sold out.
Yeah. No, I do get a lot of requests every day for training, and I don't.
I had a girl message me today saying she came in yesterday because of me.
Oh, that would have been Bella.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, she did say that.
She's so cute.
Yeah. And so I do get a lot of requests, and I try to keep a bit of a log on who can come in and keep them there and say, listen, I don't have anything at the moment.
Well, now we're a group as well, so that's instead of 5 individuals.
Well, that's kind of like what I put in our little trends for 2024 is to try to build these smaller group personal training sessions where you've got an amazing vibe. I can now fit a few more people into the class because we're getting these little groups to train together, and so that's definitely something I've been working towards. And I feel like the fitness model, the industry itself, is starting to go that way. The big groups are starting to come to small groups, and I feel like for me as a PT as well, it's more financially viable as well. I've got my app. I've put out a few more things on Delta X Coach, and then
is that on on the App Store?
That's on the App Store and on Google Play as well for Android. And then look, in the future, I want to have my own space, my own facility. That's something I'm slowly working towards. Getting a business plan and working on those things to hopefully get that up and running, because that would be a dream of mine. And then that's also a great way that I would be able to then, I guess, handle
more people,
the volume of people that want to train with me, and give them that opportunity to learn. Like I say to you, like training with me, it's more about learning than just lifting weights. I want to be able to teach those people that are willing to learn, but I also want to tap into like the college kids as well, and doing some after school work with them to help teach them how to do the strength training, not be afraid of it, give them the confidence to do it, teach them about health and longevity, like about the risks of vaping and alcohol and drugs and the late nights and stuff. I wasn't an angel. I definitely had my late nights as a teenager and at university.
Hey, we went to a festival the other day.
Yeah, we did.
We went sober to Homebush, but we still were there.
And I look back now and a completely different person to I. My mum still doesn't. When I was doing personal training, she's like, you have to wake up early for that. I was like, yeah, I know, because she just used to watch me get up really, really late during the day.
And that's what I love as well. I think when people listen to health podcasts, they're like, oh, it's so far away, I'm never going to be like that. But everyone who started their health and fitness journey wasn't like this from the start. They didn't wake up like this. It's taken just putting one foot in front of the other, and then like when you're at the end, you look back and you can see your journey. It's the same. Like if you're starting your journey, like just put one foot in front of the other, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I think that's such an important thing to understand, that you create your future self through the smallest of steps, and like just one step, and exercise is great for that, because it sort of teaches you patience and progression. And you see that it doesn't just happen in the one session, but over the time you've built that, and that drives motivation and success, whether it's in the gym or out in the real world. And if you are struggling with motivation, doing something that's kind of hard is such a win for you that it then builds that motivation. I won't go into the dopamine of it, but
we might have to do a part two, Jannis. I feel like we tangent.
Yeah, but just doing something a little bit harder, like if you're feeling a bit lazy, go and jump in the cold shower, and you're going to feel a bit pumped, and then you're going to probably go and build on that motivation and that energy that's come from that. But yeah, just one step at a time with anything in life, and as long as you're going in that general direction, the path itself will only show itself to you when you look back. But you can see that it all made sense in the end. So.
Well, just like touching on that, I'm just now thinking in my head, it'd be good if you let us know if you'd like Jannis and I maybe to do an event or something like that, and then more people get the opportunity to train with you and meet like-minded people.
We'll do a little tour in Bali. We'll do a
I'll
Bali
use the
health
balcony
retreat.
here.
Or use the balcony, yeah, for
Sick.
sure.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on the pod. You are incredibly inspiring and such a positive influence on my family. You're more than just a PT to me. You're one of my closest friends. And as I mentioned, follow him on Janis Blum and Delta X Coach. And yeah, this is also a little reminder to subscribe to Self Dom, because at the moment we're just doing it at my house and I want to make this pod as good as I can. So if you subscribe, it will mean the world.